Alright guys, welcome to another chapter of B&E Slot Sport and how to build a hard body slot car. Basically, before I made a chassis showing you how to go ahead and build one of our eliminator chassis. That's our current chassis. I do really well with it. We also have a Crusader brass chassis for those that don't want to get so in-depth with the building. This is one I just had laying around. It's not the same one that I built in a video. This one's going to be made more for oval racing. Basically, I have all the parts laid out in front of you here that you're going to need to make this happen in order to build a car that's similar to one of my cars that I built. This is another eliminator build. You can see I got various thicknesses of lead weight placed on depending on what track I was racing on that night. Super stock division all runs the Pro Slot 4002 FK motor. We also have the hobby stock division, and that is running the Pro Slot 4001 S motor. That's a slower motor. It's about 35,000 RPM for beginners. This motor's pretty much overpowered for what we're doing, but that's kind of the theory I had. Basically, we overpower the cars and no one's looking for any more horsepower. There's not a whole lot of cheating going on when it comes down to motors. Alright, let's get back to looking at what we have for stuff here. Again, this is our 4.5 eliminator chassis. You can build this a couple different ways. You can cut it and stretch it, or you can do some cutting in the base plate and you can move the uprights further back, and that'll give you a shorter wheelbase. But in base package form, it goes together as a 4.5-inch wheelbase car for large diameter tires. On this car, I already have soldered on a Bardos threaded axle. That's a retro stock car racing axle. It comes with some 4mm nuts, and that's what actually retains your front tires on the car, so you can do quick change outs and just a little bit of adjustment when you need to make adjustment on different tracks. So we're going to set that off to the side a little bit, just pull it back. I'm going to be using a brand new 4002 FK Pro Slot motor. You can use a guide flag of your choice. We have our ultralight front wheels. We're going to true all of these down because they come 1/16 out of the package. This car was built for 950 diameter tires. Our rear tires, these are our Super Comp Firm tires. Basically, it's comparable to a soft Wonder rubber. Got a little bit of lead wire. There's a lot of lead wire on the market. I just happen to have a big stockpile of the TQ wire from a while back. Pro Slot also offers some pretty good lead wire. Got your B&E Slot Sport high-speed axles. We're going to talk about that a little bit. From Chicagoland Raceway, I picked up some 1/8-inch collars. This actually retains your spacing in the rear of your car so you don't lose your gear mesh or anything like that. Everything stays pretty solid in the back of your car. Now, Dubro makes a brass-plated version of this that's pretty popular. These particular ones that I have are magnesium, and I bought those from Chicagoland Raceway, which is owned by Mike Swiss. They come in one piece, and then you got to split it to get it into two pieces. I like the Parma Big Mama braid. We're going to go with that one on this build. There is some other braid out there that I like to use, but it depends on track conditions. We're not going to get into that too far tonight. Got a couple spacers for my guide flag. I don't have a nut out, but I will turn around and grab one when the time comes. I have a 7-tooth solder-on angled ARP pinion that gets you the optimal gear mesh that you need for a hard body car, especially since the motor doesn't quite align with the axle. You got a little bit of adjustment here that you can do with your screws. Got a couple lead wire screws, or I'm sorry, lead wire clips. That's where your wires from your motor go to your guide flag, and then your braids underneath there that powers the car. I'm going to go with a Parma 1/8-inch axle, 32-inch 48 pitch crown gear in the back. I got some of our solder collars, 332 spacers. There are plenty of other companies out there that offer some nice machine spacers, but those work fine for what we're doing. I like using those. To mount the body, some guys use pins. Some guys are still using Velcro to actually, mount the body. But I like to actually use 050 stainless steel pin tube, or you can use 063 brass tube if you want. And then we bent these clips out of 032 wire. So basically I bend those guys myself, and I bend them at opposing angles so it stays in the car. Basically you're just kind of fashioned your own prints there. So sorry about my hands. I'm a working man, so my hands ain't as pretty as some YouTube videos, but we're going to go ahead and have ourselves a good time. So I'm going to go ahead and get a lot of these parts out of the way for now. I'm just going to put them in a container so they don't get lost. And we're going to work on this as we go. Kind of give you an idea of how I start the build process and my reasoning when I'm building my own cars. I want to be efficient when I'm building cars. I don't build a lot of ready to runs for people anymore because, quite frankly, hard body cars are difficult to build and offer them competitive pricing to shops. I got a set screw here I'm going to go ahead and put in the gear so I don't lose that. I got a stash. Go ahead and put that in there. Got all our spacers, our pinion. Looks like I'm missing motor screws and a guide flag nut, which I will go ahead and pick those out. We'll go ahead and put our axle off to the side. Put our motor off to the side. I'm going to put that in a different spot because I don't want any little screws or spacers or little nonsense to end up in that motor. That's going to give me some issues. We're going to go ahead and move the chassis off to the side for now too. So what I want to do is I got my tire truer here. I don't have a super fancy truer with a diamond wheel or anything like that. We do make our tires 1 1/16" diameter because there's a lot of people out there that like the big tire look. But in our series, you are allowed to run down to a 950 tire. A lot of guys run about a 975 or a 980 tire just because they want to get a little more life out of it. That's my 1/8 inch spacer. It's a 3mm by 1/8 for the Huddy tool. Right now, I have my 3/32 guy on there. So we're going to go ahead and do the fronts because the fronts are 3/32 axle. Now I'm not going to make you watch me true 4 pairs of tires here. Alright, sorry I got disturbed by work there. They tend to call me all night long when it's below 0. Anyway, went ahead and put my front tires on my tire truer. I don't have anything fancy on here. If you've never used a tire truer before, you got your set screw that actually you can set that and it will hold your tire diameter. I can't remember what I trued the last time, so I'm going to go ahead and drive that in a little bit, and we're going to work our way down to the 950 front tire diameter. Alright, when you're truing tires, you don't want to go crazy. I do 5 volts, 5 amps max on my power supply because basically you're going to be compressing the tire and it's not going to be accurate and everything else. So when you're truing tires, you want to take your time on it. I don't have a switch on this thing anymore. It's been pretty heavily used at the track. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and turn it on. I got my power supply set. I'm set for 5 volts. I'm going to go ahead and switch it over to amps so that I can watch my amps. And just very gently we're going to back off the drive screw. I kind of listen to the machine. Basically you don't want to overwork the machine. Our rubber on our fronts is hard, and then our rear tires is pretty hard too, so it takes a little longer to true. You can buy a diamond drum at your local raceway, and that will make it easier to cut, and it lasts a lot longer. It doesn't wear down. I have one. I've just been too lazy to put it on. I'm too busy. That all comes hand in hand. So we'll go ahead and drive that down. And you just take your time. Alright, let's see where that gets me. Now you can pull out a set of calipers and check it. I'm pretty sure I'm short. We're going to go ahead and kill the power. We're going to check and see how deep we are. Get back to my set screw. You can check these with calipers if you want, but I use our official tech tool because in any race series, the tech guy has the final say. Alright, so it looks like just by the eye here, I can still pull off. I'm at about 970 right now. So I could pull off quite a bit. So basically your tech tool, it's got to be touching both edges. So we're going to go ahead and take a little bit more off. This part of the video is probably a good part of the video to go ahead and do something else. So I'm going to bring it back home. I'm going to go ahead and just take it out a little bit. There's a couple tools out there, the knob job. I understand that they're getting hard to come by. You can actually set up your machine so that you have all your increments on here, repeatable increments. But I'm all over the map depending on what track I'm going to. So I don't really need that tool, although I probably need to get it just for saving myself some time. So I'm taking a little bit off. I got this handy dandy diamond tool here. A lot of shops are making these. This one I got from Dallas Slot Cars down in Garland, Texas. And I've had that for a few years. It lasts a real long time. Or you can go down to your local Walgreens or whatever and hit the cosmetic department and buy yourself a bunch of cheap emery boards, but they don't last very long. While I'm here, I think I'm pretty close to where I want to be. So I'm going to go ahead and round off the edge of my tires. Part of the reason why you round off the edge of your tires is because you don't want that hard edge of the tire, that square edge, to grab. You want the car to kind of slide around a little bit and not bite hard or tip over or anything like that. Okay. So I think I'm pretty close to home, where I want to be. If you don't have a tire truer, it's a super nice tool to have. And that looks beautiful. That's actually a little bit over 950, but that's kind of where I want it because the hard body cars that we run are pretty wicked, and we do actually wear out the front tires on the car. So I like a little bit taller tire compared to what I had. So that's your 1/16. That's your 950. I'm going to go ahead and true down the rest of these tires and get that over with, and then we'll continue on to the next phase. I'm just about done grinding here. I decided to, once I did the rears, I decided to do the fronts again, take them down a little bit more. One good thing to do is if you do have something that's set to size, like I double checked this old rim, it's a bent rim, and I went ahead and put that on a machine, brought my set screw down, and I went ahead and redid the fronts just because I wasn't happy with it. I want to have the most optimal experience for whoever does end up wheeling this car. Go ahead and take that off. I just kind of blow it out. Okay. It's a good idea to lay a towel down or put it in a little box so you don't end up with shavings everywhere. When I'm actually making tires, I got stuff everywhere. I got a shop vac rolling and everything else. So we'll go ahead and get rid of the tire tool, the truing tool. I'm going to clean that off later just so we can keep on rolling. We'll go ahead and set our tires off to the side. We'll get back to those a little bit later. Go ahead and wrap up all my shavings here so it doesn't get into everything else that I got going on. If you lay down a towel and all your shavings end up on a towel, you just pick it up and you knock the towel off in the garbage can. Alright, so now we're going to move on to the motor. This is your Pro Slot 4002 FK motor. It's a poly neo magnet motor. It's a Chinese arm. Pretty violent little sucker for what we're doing. There's various hood alignment tools that you can use to check the hoods on this stuff. I'm not going to go too far into that, but there are things available out there on the aftermarket. Chicagoland Raceway, which is one of the tracks that I race at rather frequently, has some real nice end bell alignment hardware. I think there's some other guys you could try out. But one thing I definitely do want to do is I am going to take out the brushes and I am going to radius them before I put it back in the car. So basically, gently, with a little screwdriver, I bend these tabs up a little bit, just a touch, and you want to get those springs out of there. Now pay attention to the springs orientation, because they do go on the side that they are meant to go on. So usually when I lay out my springs, you know, I put the right to the right and the left to the left. We'll go ahead and pull out the brushes and we're going to radius those just to help with the break-in time. Basically, there's a whole lot of break-in mumbo jumbo out there. I am never going to tell you that I am the guy to listen to 100% of the time. You got to figure out what works for you and do it, you know, provided that you're within your rule set. But basically, I just like to break in the motor once my brushes are radius for about 45 minutes at 5 volts. So I'm setting all these springs off to the side. Brushes don't matter. You could put those in any way you like. But I'm not sure if you could see, you know, it's not seated. You could actually see the wear on the brush. It's not fully seated. Now to help you get seated, we're going to go ahead and put this stuff away. The alignment hardware, because I don't feel that that's necessary at all. ProSlot's doing a pretty good job of quality control for a motor that's only 14 or 15 bucks. I mean, you can't complain too much for the quality, the kind of speed we're getting. Now there's a couple tools out there for radius and brushes. One is a turtle. Okay, there's diamond coated. A couple shops still got them out there. JK Products was making this block. There was a couple other guys. Mid-America Raceway had basically the diamond honing tool that you would put in the turtle, and it had a spot for vertical and horizontal brushes, and you would put them in there and you would just kind of roll it back and forth here and with your finger over the brushes. I would do it like 4 times and that's it, especially with the stock brushes. I'll go ahead and put that tool back because I got a new tool that I have not tried out yet. Dubrick makes this one. It's kind of cool. It's got the diamond tool inside there, and it's got little notches for vertical and horizontal brushes, and it's actually got your diamond brush tool inside there. So I'm gonna go ahead and try it and just see what it's like. This is the first time for me here. Okay, go ahead and put that on there. Okay. Alright, so I'm just squeezing it with my fingers and turning the knobs. I can feel it making contact there. So I'm not going to go crazy. That did a pretty good job. I'm going to go a little more though, just because. You don't want to do too much because you end up with brushes that are useless. So okay, a little bit more. You see all the little brush dust coming out of there. Okay, that looks nice. Nice radius brushes. Looks good. There's a couple other tricks with these motors. It depends on the track you're going to be running on. You want to knock the tips off the brushes just because of the cog of the motor, the strength of the magnets. With the hardbody cars anyway, I know there's a lot of debate out there. With the hardbody cars anyway out there, we have some push start issues because some of us are pushing 200 gram cars on these flat tracks and we're only running at 12 volts. So basically the motor has a hard time getting going again and somebody has to push start it, you know, from heat to heat. I'm just going to take my file and I am just going to knock the tips off is all I'm going to do. That is legal to do in our series. Make sure it is legal to do in whatever series you are racing. That's all I do. There's some fancy ways of doing it, but I'm trying to talk to the guy that is just starting to build slot cars and he doesn't have a ton of tools. So that is the guy that I am trying to talk to right now. Okay. So I just knocked the tips of that brush off. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and load them back in. Now you'll hear all kinds of break-in tricks out there and stuff like that. That little tab that I opened up gently to pull the spring out, you want to go ahead and push that back in. Okay. Okay. Sorry, I'm a highly caffeinated individual, so I get a little shaky, and it's just hard to do little work sometimes. Alright, so that's that. One other thing you're going to want to do is take some super glue and cover that seal, especially as you're handling it, because I'm already pushing that seal off a little bit. You don't want that seal to be gone, you know. Alright, so I got my power supply. I got some specially formulated B&E slot sport oil. There's a lot of snake oil out there. We just got our own formula. It's just what I like using. If it does get in the motor, it stays fairly clean here. So let me go ahead. You want to make sure that you hook up the motor right. Okay. Make sure you hook up the motor right and you don't have any of your contacts. Now usually what I do, this motor feels real nice because it's not shaking around or anything like that. So it's not a shaker. I'm not going to keep this running throughout the whole video. Usually I continue building everything else and I leave this running for about 45 minutes. It takes me about 45 minutes or an hour to get through the entire build. I'm going to go ahead and kill it so that you're not listening to this buzzing sound the entire time I'm doing this. And we're going to break this motor in later. Okay. Go ahead and kill my power supply, put my leads off to the side, put my motor. We'll go ahead and we're going to put our pinion on here. Now, my soldering iron has got to be plugged in, so let me remember to do that. And while we're letting that guy heat up, what I like to use for a soldering iron is the Hakko FX 601 soldering iron. I got myself a real nice soldering iron stand. I got a few of these in stock if anyone ever needs one. And this thing gets hot pretty quick. You can see the blue lights on means it's on. Make sure you unplug your iron so you don't destroy your tips. I did replace it with a different tip. It's a 1/4-inch chisel tip. It came with something else on it. I really can't remember, but you could find this stuff. Hopefully your local slot car shop does have the ability to order this for you. I know soldering irons are always kind of an issue for guys. Spend the money on a good soldering iron. That is like the #1 thing if you want to start building. Spend the money on a good soldering iron, basic Dremel tool, and then all your little basic wrenches. Just get that stuff. Because you're going to fight if you got the old Sears and Roebuck soldering gun. That's actually what I used as a kid growing up. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead. We got our own stainless steel motor screws. They take a little bit of work to get in, but these stainless steel motor screws that we have do not come out unless you're really getting yourself put into the wall. They need to be threaded in, so I do that before I even try and put the thing in the car. Again, take that seal, coat it with some clear nail polish or some super glue if you are required to have that seal. Okay, they're driven in, they're ready to go in the car when I am ready for that. We'll set those off to the side, make sure they don't get stuck in the motor. Alright, so let me get my little pinion. There are little reamers you can buy, stuff like that. Trying to, again, avoid you from spending a whole ton of money. Take a file, a little pointed file like this guy, and go ahead and just gently, you're cleaning the inside of the pinion to prepare it for solder, okay? You don't go crazy, you're not removing a ton of material, you're just making it clean for solder to adhere to. And then I go ahead and I file flat on the end of that thing so that hopefully when I do solder it, I get a real nice cap. I go ahead and do the same thing on the back side. Same thing with my motor shaft. I'm just cleaning it to prepare it for good solder adhesion. Okay? That's all I'm doing. Just need to move my iron a little bit closer. I've gathered too many tools here. So you see my soldering iron's already hot. The tip's already good to go. I'm gonna take out my acid flux. And I got some good, I like to use a good silver bearing solder for putting on pinions. Okay, I use acid flux. Okay, and then I am going to go ahead and tin the shaft in preparation for the pinion. See, I got good solder flow on there. Looks pretty good. I got good solder on there. I like to go ahead and do it again, because spinning a pinion sucks.
The most important thing in a man's life is his head of hair. It's more important than his looks, it's more important than his wallet, it's more important than everything. So if you think you got to worry about baldness, go to
that looks nice.
It's a one-stop shop for
okay.
skincare and sexual wellness for men.
So we're going to go ahead and put a little acid flux on there again and get ready to put our pinion on. A lot of times you could just kind of set it on the tip. I always kind of tip my motor down a little bit. I clean any solder off of my tip. And you want to just go ahead and just gently push it on there. And if you do it right, it looks like you'll have a nice cap on the end. Alright, so let's talk about that. Sometimes what you want to do is pull the pinion off and put it back on again, just to make sure you got all the solder in there. But with these poly neo magnets, the arm's pretty strong. It actually stays in place. I'll actually take a screwdriver and I will heat the pinion and turn it. That way I know I got good solder adhesion inside there. You could actually see a real nice solder cap on there. I can see it. I don't know if you can see it, but there's a really nice solder cap. I know it's in there. I know it's spread around. Go ahead and just kind of clean up the back with my iron. And that's that. You know, you don't want to overheat the motor too much because you're killing the magnets and everything else. Let's go ahead and get my acid flux out of the way and all that funny business so that I don't have any disasters. Okay, so what I like to do, because you do have to assemble the car as you're going here, and a lot of times I'll even do it still today. I'll actually put the whole back end of the car together and realize, oh man, it's kind of a pain in the ass to get to the motor screws. So I'm going to go ahead and just slap that motor right inside the car, and then I'm done with it. You know, make sure you put it in the right way. Alright, motor screws. I pretty much know where I want to be. We do have, if you got different size tires, we have some height adjustment. It's basically a slotted piece where your motor goes. So, but I pretty much know the position of my motor. So you can actually change the elevation of your motor so that you are centered up on your axle with different size tires. There's one. I always put one side in gently. You don't want to torque these cans, especially if you got screws that grab pretty good, because you will actually twist the can if you go crazy. So that first one, I didn't really put it in very tight at all. I just put it in snug. Now we'll go ahead and snug up the other side. Kind of go around evenly. You don't just hammer one down. Okay, I want to go ahead and move the motor a little bit. motor's in there flat and straight. So we'll go ahead and just do one last little tweak-a-rooney. That's it. Snug is tight. Okay. So that's that. Now, putting on the fronts. One thing I neglected to do when I was building this chassis, because I usually polish everything when I'm all said and done, I forgot to put on the backing spacers that hold this wheel to keep it from going all the way in. We're going to go ahead and do that now, because I know where I want to be. I know what the spacing of my wheel is going to be. We're going to take the nuts off. I did not crank them down tight at all. We're going to go ahead and grab a couple of these guys. Okay. Now these wheels are going to spin on there independently. So I got a couple of these 3/32 collars that are going on there. So I got to be really careful not to get acid all over this thing when I'm doing it, because basically it's going to make the car rusty. I did go ahead and polish it with some polishing compound that does prevent rust, but I still want to make sure that I clean it, and I'm going to polish it all a little bit up in the front. We're going to go ahead and put our wheels on. Now you can ditch the set screws at this point. I use those as basically oil ports. That's where you can drop your oil in. So we're going to go ahead and ditch the set screws at this particular moment. Now I kind of know the spacing that I want to have. We use those set screws for something else at a later date. So I go ahead and put these collars in inside. That's going to give me the spacing that I want with my particular wheels. I don't like to have my fronts hanging out there too far because, you know, another guy comes along and he bites you or whatever. If you hit the wall, you're going to bend your front axle. So somewhere I got a 4-inch nut driver, or 4mm nut driver. That's what these screws are. I go ahead and bring them in. Okay. I got go ahead and drive them in. Snug is tight on all this little hardware, man. I mean, even me, I'm kind of a caveman. I tend to go a little too tight on things. And I break stuff. You don't really need to go completely caveman on stuff. You could just kind of chill out a little bit. Alright, same thing. So I got these pushed out. That's where I want them. I'm going to go ahead and just do a little filing there. And that's going to give me something good for the solder to adhere to. Okay. Move that out of the way. Alright. Go ahead and push these out. Car looks good. I'm going to go ahead and drop some oil in the ports just because that will keep any kind of oil or crust from developing inside the wheel as I'm doing this. So you just got to make sure that you don't get oil where you're trying to solder. Again, I'm not going to say that I am the #1 best builder in the world, but I'm not going to steer you wrong. Just got to figure out what works for you and go with it. I like to brush on my acid flux, as you can see in the earlier videos that I posted. Get my iron going. My iron's nice and hot, so that was easy. Okay, and I go ahead and make sure that I just got flow all the way around. The other thing I do is I go ahead and make sure that that wheel spins freely, because if you push too hard on that, you will actually bind the wheel up. Okay, so that's that. I like that. I got good solder all the way around that. I just checked the bottom out too. We'll get back to that in a minute. Let's go ahead and do the other side. Sometimes just a little bit more acid flux. I'll say it again, acid flux, you gotta be super careful, because if you get that all over everything, especially steel, any kind of spring steel, carbon steel, it's gonna rust. It's just a matter of time. Okay, I like that stuff. I'm gonna go ahead and just hit those bottoms one more time. And then we will verify everything is turning free. Nice. Real nice. Now, if you do get it bound up and things don't turn, which these are turning, whoop, see, now I put that on in the wrong spot altogether. See, it's a good thing you guys are watching. Thought something looked a little funky. Alright, so whatever, we'll just heat that. We'll get it in there. Let's go ahead and do a little acid flux. But if you do actually, that was a nice little mistake, simple stuff that happens. But if you do actually bind up a wheel because you pushed in on it too hard, all you gotta do is heat it and turn the wheel with your finger. Okay, if that makes any sense. And that'll keep it from binding on you. Okay. Yeah, see, that one's just giving me a heck of a time. Alright, there we go. It's because I'm trying to rush through this, basically. So that one's real nice. That one's real nice now. I finally got it. Alright, and everything looks good. I got nice solder joints all the way around. Alright, so I like to take some isopropyl alcohol, since I've touched this thing, with acid. And I want to go ahead and wipe everything nearby down, because you want to make sure that you don't rust this thing up. But that is a step. I usually put those collars on as I'm building the chassis before like a final polish. Because any other soldering that I'm going to do on this car at this point, I'm not going to use acid flux. I'm going to use paste flux and 60-40 electrical solder. I'm getting away from the acid entirely. Just because acid flux, I see guys using it on their lead wire. It will actually cause your lead wires to corrode and break over time. So I like that. It looks pretty good. Okay. Nah, I didn't get crazy with the acid, so I feel pretty good about it. Let's go ahead and get down in there, wipe it all off. Okay. If you do want to polish it, that's the stuff, actually. A racer had handed me that. I was using something else. And then recently a racer handed me that. I don't want to bring any names. And that stuff is pretty nice. It actually is pretty good on, I guess, plastic and paint and everything else. But it does a pretty nice job of painting it. And it's got anti-corrosive properties. We're going to go ahead and just do this. Okay? At least up in the front areas where I'm concerned about. Because I'm not going to do it, and then I'm going to be all upset because this thing got tarnished. So, I mean, brass is cool. I like brass. We have a brass chassis, but spring steel's pretty indestructible. Okay, once you build it, it's a pretty long-lasting car. Brass is going to bend, at some point. I mean, we are allowed to brace chassis in our series, but a lot of series you are not able to do that. And even still, you're going to get bends in weird spots. You got one spot braced, another spot isn't. Just kind of getting her all wiped down. Another reason why it's a good idea to get all your soldering done before you put everything on. You can see I'm having some issues getting around the wheels and stuff. So everything looks pretty nice. Go ahead and wipe that stuff off of here. Looks good. Make sure I didn't get any major on the tires. Alright, so that's that. Let's go ahead and get that stuff out of the way. It's good to watch other people make mistakes. If I told you I was like some sort of mental giant, I'd be lying. Alright, man. So that is that. Basically, we got our motor in. We're going to go ahead and put together the rear assembly of the car. Okay? Motor rotates this direction, so your gear goes there. That's something you really gotta pay attention to, because all the time I see guys, I've done it too, you put them on the wrong way and you are screwed, because you're going into the race with your gear on backwards and the car wants to go the other way. Alright, this axle's too long, so we are going to cut it down. Takes a little bit of patience. I know exactly where I want to cut it. You can measure and mark. Because a long axle is just a bunch of weight hanging out there that you don't need. So we're going to go ahead and just get rid of that. Always cut slow, you know. You don't want that wheel kicking back at you. I can turn it up a little bit. That axle's getting hot. Okay, and then I just go ahead and clean up the end on my wheel. When you do that, you may want to put an old tire on there to hold it, because that axle does get pretty hot. Okay. Kind of champering that end. Alright. That's that. Ooh. See? That's hot. Alright. Let's go ahead and get rid of all that crap. Trying to make this video semi-entertaining for you too, so let's go ahead and ditch this little piece that is about 10 million frickin' degrees. I'm gonna go ahead and never know what happens to those little wrenches that Dremel gives you. We're gonna get rid of that. This is cooled down. Put our B&E slot sport high-speed axle in the Dremel, and we're going to take some Scotch-Brite and just polish it. Okay. You get fancy with polishing compound and crap like that, reaming out the bushings, whatever. That's a bunch of nonsense. Okay, that is over with. So we're going to go ahead and start assembling our back end. Go ahead and just line her up. See, this axle's still warm. Let me let that cool down. We'll go ahead and get our other spacers all ready. Okay, there's our rear tires. Nice and cool now. Yeah, the gear's kind of giving me some issues, but it's alright. Once you're through there. Sometimes you got a little burr in those Parma gears. Doesn't help, it doesn't hurt to go ahead and look inside there for starters and make sure that there are no burrs inside there.
You'll like it, and that's worth every penny. Try it and believe it. Discover.com/match. Cashback match offer only for new card members. Limitations apply.
One thing I neglected to grab. Alright, so you don't want to just put these spacers right up against the bushing, these axle collars, whether it's brass or magnesium or whatever collars you're using. Because actually you're going to be rubbing up against your bushing. It's going to slow you down. It's going to create a whole bunch of wear that you don't need. Stress on the motor, everything else. So I got some Colford 25 thou spacers. You could use a bunch of different spacers for this. I just like the Colfords. They seem to be a little bit more precise. Go ahead and take those 25 thick 1/8 inch spacers. You put them on there. on either side. It's going to back up to this collar. Okay. Okay. These collars I cut in half. There's one side that's a little rougher than the other. We're going to go ahead and put the smoother side to the back. Mike was nice enough to give you another tapping in case you strip these, because these are magnesium. They might do that. So try not to be a caveman when you're tightening stuff down, because I sure am. Alright, we're going to go ahead and tighten those down. Now when I tighten down all my set screws, I put them in all different directions, because if you put all your set screws on one spot of the axle, it's going to throw the axle out of balance. Okay, now that's a whole lot of crazy nonsense. That's for another video. I don't really want to talk about that right now. But balancing axles and stuff like that is something that's used in more high-speed cars. We don't really, it's not worth doing with these cars. I mean, these are basically bricks that we're racing. Alright, so everything feels pretty nice. You want to get some good gear lash with the FK motors. You don't want it slammed in there super tight. You can use a piece of lane sticker paper and put it in between the pinion and the crown, and that will give you good lash. But I kind of like to do it by feel. I like the way that feels. Alright, those poly neo mags are pretty strong. So kind of got my set screws facing in all different directions. And again, someone might get on and say I'm full of crap or whatever. But you know, you just got to formulate your own theories in racing and go with it. You don't have to worry about stripping set screws on our wheels. Our wheels are pretty super durable, unless you are super Goliath. So we're going to go ahead and take our official tech tool, check the width, which I actually look like I am in pretty good shape on the width. So just by eye, though, I'm not centered up, so I want to be center. I'm going to go ahead and set the car up the way I want it. Okay. I like that a little bit. That's nice. Alright. That's nice. We'll double check our front too. So I'm a little short of tech in front, which is kind of what I was saying before. I like my front run in a little bit because we're running American style bodies. You know, we kind of got the wheel wells hanging out there, old school short track style. And, you know, you can really take some pretty serious damage, you know, if your front tire's hanging out there way too far. So I like to run a little narrower. Alright, man, we're getting a heck of a lot closer here. Okay, it's starting to look pretty. Alright, so guide flag of choice. I usually, on my guide flag, I just use brass clips, Parma clips. ProSlot's got some real nice ones. Whatever brand you prefer, does not matter. The silver plated TQ, expensive, whatever, qualifier clips, I think that's all a bunch of nonsense in the type of cars that we race. You don't need that stuff. Plus, you got to be careful because a lot of those tend to be a little bit thinner. If you do happen to get somebody underneath your bumper, you know, we're racing pretty heavy cars, you will actually split your guide clip if you're trying to use one of those thinner clips. Okay? So I like to go ahead and load my braid up in there and my guide flag clips. I know the majority of the tracks that I run are 10 thou spacing. I got a 10 thou spacer block here. They're 10 thou, give or take. I always check my guide flag spacing when I get to the track anyway, because I can't remember where I raced the last time. I like to push my braids back in there a little bit with a blunt object. Go ahead and get those in there. Okay, so I know they're fully home. So then just kind of massage them so that they sit fairly flat, and then just flare it up at the ends, you know. Just massage your braid. And go ahead and put that in there. So with that 10 thou spacer, I'm checking to see where I want to be. I'm going to try a 20 thou. We got some 20 thou stainless steel spacers. I got a pretty good stock of those. I'm going to try a 20 thou spacer. This is a different guide flag than what I'm used to using. So, okay. Alright, I think I'm gonna go with that. I want to check my depth though, which I cannot find. My 3/32 plate, I got them right here. So we tack 032 onto the front axle, which I'm pretty good there. Okay, everything looks nice and equal. I like it. Go ahead and use, I like our nylon nuts. There's a lot of different nuts out there. Aluminum, brass. A lot of guys are making some pretty nice stuff. But we have in stock just a basic nylon guide flag nut, which I like because I can take it off and on and I'm not worried about cross threading every time I do that. Because I travel around from month to month to a different track, so I got to change my guide flag spacing quite a bit. Go ahead and bring that down. A lot of other cars you gotta cut the guide flag post off or whatever. But we don't need to do that with a hard body car. Who the hell cares about the weight of that guide flag post, or if that guide flag post is going to get in the way of a body? We're just going to make laps, try not to get hit, and try to go home with all the marbles. I put the nut on the wrong way the first time, because there's actually a flat on the bottom. That's the side you want down. Okay. A little harder than I thought to make these instructional videos. Probably because I'm usually just sitting here in silence with music jamming, and I'm not sitting here talking to myself like some kind of lunatic. Okay, so I like that. That's got real nice, not a ton of up and down movement. Guide flag wants to go back and forth real easy. We're getting there. Lead wire. Okay, we got ourselves a nice little lead wire retainer here. You can mess around with what you want to do as far as laying the wires. I like to do, basically, I like to go back through here. Sometimes I do the little hoops. I do it a little different every time, but I like the little hoops because basically that helps that guide flag correct itself. You see what I'm talking about? So if you do come out, your guide flag corrects itself, Marshall's going to put your car back in, your guide flag, in theory, should be pretty straight. If you got issues where your guide flag's hung up, it's like this, like that, you're losing valuable time on the track. So from the front back, go ahead and fish it underneath my body pin tubes. Go ahead and strip the end of the wire. While I'm over here, I'm going to remember to turn my soldering iron down, because I don't need my soldering iron at full tilt boogie to do this. I got that nice little wire stripper. The cutter's messed up. That's a pretty cool tool by Hobbyco. I got another brand new one. No idea where it is. I twist the wires up real nice. Okay. Paste flux. Got some right here. You don't want to use acid flux at this point. Wire, you just want to use paste flux. Okay. You're going to get some paste on the wire. Oh boy, I got a little out of control there. Just a little bit of paste on the wire. Paste flux on your guide flag clips. Got my iron turned down. Hopefully it cooled down a good amount for me. We're going to go ahead and just real quick on and off. You don't want to melt that guide flag. You should be quick about it. Might have turned the iron down too much, which I did. Okay. But you can see, like, I got the wire tinned. I was on and off it. I'm still hanging on to that wire, so I'm not burning the snot out of myself. It's a good thing. Kind of get this wire the way that I want it. A little bit. We're going to go ahead and fish that back. There's different ways. You can mess around with heat shrink tubing to put back here to hold the wires together. You know, that, I don't know. Everyone has their own preferences, you know. So you want to be on and off because you don't want to wick the solder up that wire. So just like that, I got a nice solder joint. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna just lay a little more solder on top of that. Nice. Okay, see how I was able to hang on to that? I got the temperature that I know that I can hang on to, and I got a real decent solder joint there. This one brace is just, this one bracket is just kind of bent. I'm straightening it out because it's going to bother me. Alright, wires go straight back on this motor. Check the rotation of your motor, make sure you're doing it the right way. Okay, go ahead and position this wire to do what I want it to do, right there. Okay. Give yourself a clean cut. We're going to go ahead and strip that wire. You know, 1/8 inch, 3/16, something like that. You don't need to strip off a whole bunch. I go ahead and twist the wire. Get a little bit of paste flux on my posts of my motor. That's it. I got that wire tinned. Now, another thing you can do is if you're worried about excessive solder getting up into the jacket of that wire where it's going to wick up there and then you might have a potential broken wire in the future, you can put a little drop of oil right at the base where the insulation meets the exposed wire, and that will prevent that from happening. Okay? I haven't had a wire break in a while, but it does happen, so just getting rid of some of my paste flux nonsense here. Next side, I kind of pinch it up. My holes that I made on this chassis for the wires, you know, they're a little tight. I suppose that's something I'll revise if I ever end up doing other chassis. So it's kind of a pain sometimes to get it through there. It's delicate work, you know. You know, you could open it up with a Dremel if you had to. It always just takes a little bit of patience. Usually what I do is I just kind of squeeze off that end and pinch it, because when you got a cut, it really struggles to get in there. There we go. See, it went right in there. Alright, we're gonna do this. Use my handy dandy little wire stripper there. I don't know, I don't get crazy measuring. Go ahead and twist up them wires. Paste flux. A lot of raceways sell them in syringes. I thought about making some, I mean, I make one for myself. I thought about making something like that, but you know what? Screw that nonsense. Let somebody else sell that stuff. It's pretty nice. It's a nice thing to have in the little plastic syringe. Just got to get yourself set up to build efficiently. If you want to build and you want to enjoy doing it, got to figure out what setup works for you. That got too hot. See? Messing with my temperature. Let's let that cool down. We're gonna go pull it back a little bit to where I want it. We're gonna go ahead and work on fishing this guy back. Hey, whatever, you could just run lead wire straight to the motor if you want, but patience is a virtue. Alright, so that thing cooled off real nice. I struggled a little bit, so we're going to go ahead and give it a little bit of paste flux again.
We're going to give new card members a one-year anniversary gift they'll never forget. At the end of your first year, we'll match all the cash
Nice. I got it that time. What do you know? Alright. We're going to go ahead and kind of match up these hoops. I keep these hoops a little tight. You know, but now basically I got a guide flag that's going to want to correct itself just because of the positioning of the wires. Okay? I want these hoops kind of tight, because if they're not tight, then you're going to have issues with it repositioning itself. And I'll tell you what, man, I didn't do the hoop thing forever, and a pretty good friend of mine, Sano Dave Fiedler, was the first person to show me that. And I appreciate everything that he ever showed me. Okay, we're just going to strip that insulation off. Doo-doo-doo. Go ahead and tinner. Always give it a gentle little tug just to make sure that I got it, and kind of inspect the joints and everything. And we'll go ahead and we'll just take a dry towel and just wipe off everything. Okay. That paste flux really ain't gonna hurt nothing. So, you know, you haven't been working with acid, so you don't have a bunch of acid hanging out on your car. Wipe these joints off. Alright. So that's it, man. I mean, you pretty much got yourself a rather wicked roller. Now, for body mounts, I do always use 032 wire. I just buy that at your local hobby shop or whatever, Hobby Lobby. Then I bend them at opposing angles, and I go ahead and bend my own wire, and that's what we're going to use for body mounts. That's probably going to be the next video, though. I think I can make an entire video on mounting a body and getting that all put together, and then we'll probably make another video on assembly of the body and gluing. So basically these pins sit inside here, and we drill holes through the body. There's different ways that guys are doing this. I like the wire, and then it basically works a little bit like your basic ready-to-run clip, body clip. And I bend it a little bit long so it's got some tension in there so it doesn't want to come out. Because sometimes straight pins are an issue, and some tracks are weird, you know. Sometimes you got to use straight pins, sometimes you got to do the body clip, because sometimes you're rocking those pins right out of the body. You don't even know what the heck's going on. Velcro tape. But you want the body to kind of float on there a little bit loose. So that's about it with the body pins. Okay, those are in there. Last thing I want to cover, I like to coat my front tires with super glue because it helps them last a lot longer. Helps them not wear down as much. You have to go back and coat your tires with super glue periodically from time to time. So, super glue, nail polish, that all works. I always put a little piece of wire or a pin inside my super glue. That way it doesn't dry up. I like piano wire because sometimes pins actually break off in there. So go ahead and get that out. Alright, let's make sure I got glue coming out of there. Off to the side somewhere. Super glue is always an issue. Sometimes I'll take that same pin and just jam it in there multiple times. want to put your weight. You know, on a flat track road course, I put my weight in different spots. There are some tracks that are easier to drive. I don't really put a whole ton of weight in my cars. You want enough to calm it down. So there's various thickness weights out there though, so pay attention. And some shops sell stuff that's you know, 16th inch thick. Some of it's old 32 thick. Some of it's even thinner than that. So try to pay attention to the different weights out there, because sometimes you don't necessarily need to put one heavy block of lead anywhere. You just need a little bit here and there. So you see I got this car here. We're going to set this guy off to the side. But this is a car that I've raced over a pretty long period of time now. And that guy has got all kinds of different weight on it. You know, it's a flat track car, and I put weight in little spots depending on what I want the car to do. Generally, lead weight, more weight up in the front will keep the nose down, but it will make the back end of the car loose. If you want to get a little bit more grip in the back half of the car, you put a little bit of weight right in front of the rear tires. That's the gist of it. You figure out what works for you, your driving style, what works for you. Sometimes I'm desperate. My car's not working very well. I just start throwing lead weight in weird spots all the way in the back of the car, up on top of the body mounts, way out outside the body mounts. One thing is we just don't allow any weight underneath our cars at all. So, but that gives you a pretty good idea of how to get started making a hard body roller. Check us out on our next video. I'm going to try and do some body mounting, and then I might make a separate video when I got some time. We'll make a video on some basic painting techniques and stickers and stuff like that, mounting interiors. So have yourself a good night. Hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope that it was pretty informative for you. Keep it in the slot.